national security at the moment is a really important issue. The world has got much more dangerous in the last couple of years. So I'm not going to begrudge him going, but I would say this is a Prime Minister who seems to spend most of his time out of the country and seems more comfortable in those areas. And one of the big crises of his premiership is that nobody knows what he thinks on domestic issues. So when it comes to education or health or the economy, his big problem is he's not set out a vision, he's not holding anyone to account, he's not forcing through the required change that needs to happen. You look at something like welfare, where he said he wanted to reform it and then he backed down almost immediately. Those are the issues which are not being grappled. And we know, of course, that Downing Street at the moment is engulfed in chaos because of the Peter Mandelson and Matthew Doyle scandals that have happened. So whilst I don't begrudge him going to an international conference if needs be, I do think the domestic picture is in real chaos at the moment, and he needs to focus on bringing back the leadership, the detail that's required to govern the country. Who is governing the country at the moment? It's not clear.
The fight coming up in politics, the real fight, is not in the Labour Party. It's with the right-wing politics that challenges that. The politics of reform. The politics of divide, divide, divide. Grievance, grievance, grievance. That will tear our country apart. That is the fight that we are in. And I will be in that fight as long as I have breath in my body.
We will consider whether the current arrangements for the declaration and publication of financial interests for ministers and senior government officials are sufficient, and whether in the future regular published financial disclosure forms or other additional transparency measures should be used. We will look closely at our system for providing transparency around lobbying, and, Mr. Speaker, it is clear that we should consider again the use of non-corporate communications channels within government. Revelations from the Epstein files have shown that it has been far too easy to forward sensitive information via unofficial channels. There is a lack of clarity about the use of non-corporate communication channels within government, which has raised concerns about the security of official information. As members on the benches opposite know from their former ministers who also forwarded information from the government via private email accounts to people when they shouldn't. Mr. Speaker, we have all been appalled at Jeffrey Epstein's disgusting crimes and Peter Mandelson's despicable behaviour. It is utterly contrary to what the Prime Minister stands for and the values at the heart of this government. We are resolute in our commitment to fighting men's violence against women and girls and supporting their victims. Delivering on this mission is a critical part of our response to the terrible misogyny at the heart of the Epstein scandal. We also recognise that Peter Mandelson's behaviour has posed difficult questions about our safeguards against corruption. I have set out today, Mr. Speaker, the steps the government is taking to ensure that the British public can have confidence in the integrity of public life, and I will continue to update the House, as I said last Monday and today, on these matters as our works develop.
But what I do know is he said in the House just a couple of weeks ago that it was the Cabinet Secretary who's going to oversee the release of the Peter Mandelson files. And a week later, he sacked him. So who is going to be doing that work? And we know that there are many positions now in Number 10 who are unfilled, or they're held by people who are in acting positions. And this is a critical time for the country. Just yesterday, we had growth figures which showed that we grew as a country by 0.1% in 2025. The economy is not being gripped. You have issues like welfare spiraling out of control that is not being gripped. Our energy prices are going up and up. This is not being gripped. So what we need is a Prime Minister that is focused on running the country, not saving his own skin.
Lisa Nandy has complained about toxic briefing in government laced with misogyny, she says. What's your reaction to her comments?
Well, look, I think after the week that we have had, it's important that we move forward in a united way, dealing with the wider issues of how we vet in our country, dealing with corruption issues that come out of the Peter Mandelson scandal, but that we move forward united behind this Prime Minister, working together as a cabinet, all playing our part to change this country. The British people elected us just 18 months ago, and they want to now see us getting on with the job of changing the country for the better.
That's great.
Do you still think the Prime Minister should resign and go?
I stated my view. I stand by that view. I welcome the fact that there is now general acceptance that things have not been good enough, that there have been far too many mistakes, and things have to change. But I'm the one that's standing to be First Minister in 3 months' time. I'm the one that's putting myself before the people of Scotland in 3 months' time,
And he backs
they
you
deserve,
for that.
and they deserve to know.
You still think he should go?
Well, I've stated my view and I stand by it.
But so you still think he should go?
Well, I've stated my view. I stand by that view because I'm the one that's putting myself before the public in 3 months' time, and the people in Scotland deserve to know what my standards are, what I believe, what I'm willing to tolerate, and what I would do differently if I was elected as First Minister.
And yet
that's
today
what I'm
he's
making clear to
stronger
them.
and you look weaker.
Well, there's a big election coming up in 3 months' time that's about my country, Scotland. And I think the people of Scotland can see quite clearly that they have someone that's willing to be open, honest, and to put Scotland first and foremost.
But after
and
your
that's the
comments
big
on
choice
he
in the
looks
next 3
stronger,
months.
Doesn't he? His
Well,
position's strengthened.
they've accepted that there are many mistakes, that they have to correct those mistakes. I stand by
But none of them
my
are backing
stated.
you.
I stand by and state my view. I'm the one that's seeking election in 3 months' time. I'm the one that recognises that this country can't afford a third decade of an SNP government. I'm just talking about one issue, the Queen Elizabeth University Hospital. I could talk about the 10,000 homeless kids in our country. I could talk about NHS lists being far too long in this country. I can talk about the SNP's inability to speak the truth and the devastating impact that's having across the country, their willingness to use public money like it's their own to challenge the law in court. People cannot tolerate a third decade of this SNP government, and that's why I'll come to you in a second, and that's why I'm absolutely determined to win this election in 3 months' time.
So if you think about what's happening in this country, we've got poor growth, we've got living standards with people really struggling. And the answer to all of those things is to make our electricity much cheaper. That is our view. So we've got a cheap power plan which could cut electricity bills by 20%. We could do that instantly. And then we need to rewire the entire energy system to prioritise cheap, reliable electricity. And that's important for our heavy industry. It's also important for the jobs of the future, like AI, and it's really important for households struggling at home. And I would just make this final point. If you want people to use electricity to heat their home or drive their car, which is what the decarbonisation agenda wants them to do, the best thing you could do is get cheaper electricity. So for all of those reasons, the most important thing we can do in the energy system is to make our electricity cheap.
Far from the bills coming down by £150, they're going to be coming down next to nothing by 2030, compared with your pledge to the electorate prior to the last general election of reducing bills by £300.
Your question faces in so many different directions at once, Sir Christopher. I say with the greatest of respect that it's hard to follow. You're both saying that the cost of solar is too low, that it's too high, that it's going to lower bills, that it's going to raise bills. You'll have to clarify your question.
What I'm saying is that you're putting subsidies into solar, you're putting subsidies into wind, you're putting subsidies into requiring
you're really wrong about that.
Increasing almost to a total dependency upon electricity rather than utilising our gas resources.
So I think the important thing is thinking about how we're addressing climate and making sure that it's rational. So our position is that the Climate Change Act, which was our way of addressing that in the UK, is now not doing what promised, because what it was meant to do was cut emissions but not harm the economy and not harm living standards. But it clearly is imposing costs across our economy and across people's basic goods. Things like the cost of electricity has gone up a huge amount. And the reason that's important is we are 1% of global emissions, 99% are happening elsewhere. And actually, if we are pursuing the reduction of emissions in a way that makes us poorer, which hurts living standards, which hurts industry, which hurts our economy, no one else around the world is going to do it. So what's really clear is that we need to do this in a different way. And our way of doing it is making electricity cheap. We think that is the most important thing. And it works for growth, works for living standards. And by the way, it's better for decarbonisation as well. Well, like I said, we think it is important to play our part in a global challenge. We think climate is a global challenge, and we think it's really important to protect the environment. And also, we care about pollution and what's happening in terms of the UK and around the world. But we also need to do these things in a rational way. And like I said, Ed Miliband is pursuing this with the zeal of, someone in a religious fervour, and he's not looking at the results of his actions. And what he's actually doing is shutting down the North Sea, even though we know we need oil and gas gas, for example. He's making the cost of electricity incredibly expensive, even though he then wants to force people to use it to heat their home and drive their car. And all of these things are now pulling in the wrong direction. And we have to make sure as a priority that we get cheaper electricity in this country and that we have growth and strong industry as well.